Now we've got a very special keynote. Mr. Rupert Day is Global CEO of 10th Avenue. 10th Avenue, as you may know, oversees Kinetic, Joule, and SpaFax, and it's a very interesting model of, I'm sure you may have many questions, but so I don't have to ask them. We have a great interviewer, Mr. Jack Myers, who will ask the questions to Rupert. Jack is chairman of Myers Business Network. He's a great interviewer and a good friend, and let me welcome both Rupert and Jack to the stage. Let's give them a hand.
Which one do you want to say?
Whatever you prefer.
So I go first.
Thanks, Barry. Hi, everyone. Rupert, you've got a fascinating background, and we first met when Erwin Gottlieb introduced us a number of years ago. Our conversations that day were around arbitrage and transparency. And so that sometimes the issues don't change. But as I understand it, you were one of the first 25 or 30 employees of WPP. I think of those first few, there are only 4 remaining, or you're fourth on the hierarchy based on tenure.
Yes, continuous
survival. You've also, within WPP, you've had a pretty fascinating background. You were part of J. Walter Thompson. I think you came in right after the acquisition of J. Walter Thompson. You were in M&A. You were the CFO of Mindshare. You were, I believe, tied with Erwin as the first employee of GroupM as COO. So you've certainly seen the company evolve and the industry evolve. So it's not totally relevant, but we'll bring it back to the relevance here at DPAA. What is the relevance today of a massive holding company like WPP?
I mean, I think from my perspective, and I'm sure if you get another response if you asked anybody else, but I mean, there's the obvious of trying to herd the cats, looking at a single direction and get consensus as what the overall WPP mission and objectives are, and obviously deliver money to the street. But it's the second one which I think is more important and more hidden, and that's effectively setting the tone. To me, in a holding company. I mean, I think WPP is a misunderstood beast. It is definitely microanalyzed, but it's not micromanaged. And it sets the tone within the entire organization that the different parts of the organization basically sink or swim on their own. And that doesn't necessarily make it a kind organization. It doesn't necessarily make it an organization for everyone. But I think it makes it an organization where collectively we try and do the right thing for clients and work together. So I think that's the role of the holding company.
And what led you to 10th Avenue through the various companies you were in? Why 10th Avenue?
Well, I think that, I mean, I worked for Thompson. I was the second employee of Kantar, and I was, I think, the third employee of Mindshare and the second employee of GroupM. So, you know, and I think that, you know, I think there was 2 things, looking at that history, and I think that GroupM, you know, one size, it went from 400 people to 20,000 people. You know, that's a, you know, do you want to work for a huge organization or a small organization? Secondly, they are, I think, the most efficient distributors of messaging. And, you know, to me, and that's a real role and a really important role. I think there is some parts of the media landscape which is going to benefit much more from bringing back content analytics and media and audience together in a cohesive form, which I don't think can necessarily done by an organization like GroupM that has 80 million of billings, or cannot be done at that level. So that's why I left it, because I think that the content piece has to become more important in the distribution.
So, and we will get into this convergence of content with distribution. This morning, in the panel led by David Verklin, there were conversations about the challenges to sellers as they develop video assets in the out-of-home arena. in getting to the buyers, the planners, getting to the TV buyers and planners, the digital buyers and planners. And one constant refrain I hear from out-of-home sales organizations is we've got to get out of the out-of-home agencies. And Kinetic is one of the largest, if not, it is the largest.
It is the largest, yes.
Buyer and planner of out-of-home. So how do you, in that scenario, maintain the importance and relevance and make Kinetic the point of first contact as opposed to the first sellers, as opposed to the place they're trying to get out of?
I mean, I think that's, I don't think it necessarily should be or has to be. And I think that, you know, when you look at the industry, we can either use digital play space or much more audience buying as an extension of out-of-home. We can use it as an extension of digital, and you can use it as an extension of broadcast. You have to align the sell with the measurement and the metrics of the person who's buying it. For us, and we have a business here in the US, which is an aggregator of digital play space screen. And we position that as an extension of more traditional out-of-home. We sell it as an extension of digital. We work with Xaxis Places to help them fulfill. And we work with the GroupM.
Xaxis being the programmatic arm of WPP.
And we work with TV broadcast people, both within WPP and outside WPP. So I think that, you know, yes, there's very much an extension of out-of-home, but as an extension of digital and as an extension of broadcast. So not all of our volume comes from Kinetic. It can come direct and it can come from a broadcast lead.
How challenging is it for you within GroupM to integrate and collaborate with Reno Scanzoni and his TV teams, with Ari Blumen and his digital teams? You mentioned two people who are very easy to collaborate with. You know, it's you know, I mean, collaboration takes two parties. Some people, you know, and you mentioned two people, both Ari and Reno, who understand the value that we can bring and recognize the potential of it. I think it's not an issue as it relates to the trading arm of these agencies. I think it much more sits with the planners of these agencies and possibly the advertisers themselves as to why should this be on the media schedule. I think I have to be careful, but I mean, you know, what we found... No, you don't have to be careful. There's no one here. There's no one.
What we found is when we started our network is that it's very difficult to sell anything new. You can only sell better. So we had to create products that were an extension of what was already being done, so it could sit on a media plan easily as an extension of what they were currently doing. They didn't have the whether it was the ability or the wherewithal or whatever it was, to sell yet another layer. And I can understand why. You know, it's complex enough for a planner, it's complex enough for a client. So our products are sold as an extension of broadcast, as I said, an extension of out-of-home or an extension of thing. It's if I can be brand specific, it's not different. It's New Purcell, which is a UK dig product, versus Purcell. And I think that's what we are trying to do is, this is not different, but this is better, and it's a mix of what you're currently doing with an improved version of it.
And the better. You have 4 groups within 10th Avenue. You have Kinetic, obviously. You have Jewel, the mobile group, and then you have Forward and SpaFax, which are also in the business of content development and distribution. So when you say better, is better the integration across those multiple units, platforms?
The better is all of it. There is no doubt. The better is reaching the right audience at the right time. Better is distributing the right content that has a sense of utility and is going to get someone to do something. It is also understanding the physical and the digital world and how those two work together. And it's also being able to measure that impact so you can actually then improve it and effectively, not only from an efficiency basis, but offering an experience that is a consumer is going to want to engage with. What we're trying to do is give equal importance to all of those three at the mindset, and then obviously optimize between those three depending upon the campaign objectives.
And when you're looking across the various platforms that you have, what percentage of your business today is video related?
In terms of pure video, probably about 20%.
And 5 years from now, where would you see that percentage?
I would say maybe, it's going to be less than 50%.
Okay. And when you look at the video component and you look at the digital out-of-home video, and then you combine it with mobile, which is another huge part, growth part of your business, how do you see those two businesses coming together, and are they coming together quickly enough to satisfy you and to satisfy your clients?
I think there's so many different answers to that. The first of all is how do you want them to come together? We don't believe that it's by necessity the relationship between the screen and the handheld itself. That is obviously something that can happen, but we think how those two campaigns work together is also important. We bought it's not a mobile company, it is based upon mobile, but it's a creative technology business that understands how creative works in different devices at different times, whether that's your handheld, your tablet, your Xbox, your Wii, your IPTV, and can distribute that content seamlessly over a single technology.
Candy Space?
That's called Candy Space. What is interesting is that company created an out-of-home creative execution. So our UK mobile company created a French out-of-home creative execution, right? There's three things I learned from that. The first thing is that clients want support to try and solve the creative executions in the environments which we work in. 2, they don't care who comes up with it, as long as someone comes up with it. 3, they are happy to pay for it if it's fantastic. And 4, if you then deliver a mobile component as well, which is an extension of that audience, they will then pay for that. And that and that mobile component can be a free distribution through social or a paid distribution through paid media. And that's what we're trying to do, is bring creative assets and use them wherever the environment needs them, versus stick mobile over here or stick out of home over here.
And when you talk about creative applications, you're getting into a part of the business that historically media, GroupM has, very clear differentiation and separation from the JWT and the Y&R and the creative unit.
Yeah.
How are you managing that process? I can understand the collaboration with Irwin and Reno and.
So you answered your first question, why did I leave GroupM? It's difficult. And you have to come in, sympathetically, and we position ourselves as understanding the environments and being able to execute your strategic ideas to the best interest of the clients. So we talk about execution, not strategy. I think that's one thing that helps us through that process. But it's difficult. But in the end, I'm absolutely convinced that it's not the J. Walter Thompsons, and I only use the WPP stable, but I'm sure I could use any other stable. It's not the creative agency that's going to make the decision, it's the client and the advertiser that's going to make the decision. Mm-hmm. And we have a partnership approach. We will work with these creative agencies, we'll work with media agencies. We fulfill and we work with IPG agencies very, very successfully, and we work with publicist agencies so successfully, either on a managed basis or a white label basis. And
within which divisions that you're working with IPG?
Within the core out-of-home, either in terms of tools and systems that we license, or in terms of partnering where we work with them on some things and they work with us on others. So it's a true collaborative partnership. Within WPP, I think they have, this Martin's new buzzword, horizontality, where how we can get the best of WPP across the different verticals. And we put ourselves forward as being your core execution partner in our areas of expertise. And it's, some invite us in, and some don't.
Mm-hmm. So why should a young person starting out in the business or an executive who's been around the business for 20 years come into the digital out-of-home space?
Because I think it is, when people are outside the home in general, they have a very complex mindset. Much more complex when they're inside the home. It depends on the time of day, it depends on the city, it depends on a whole load of different parameters. If we understand that, it is essential for us to distribute content, I think, in a much, much more granular way than the core media agencies. And I think that if we get this right, we will be the coalescence, if I can call it, of creative and audience and data in a way that other people, will maybe follow, but other people are not doing at the moment. And I think that is a critical piece as to, whether people do want to join. Mm-hmm. To me, our mobile agency is incredibly excited that it's doing out-of-home executions. I'm excited that they're excited.
Do you look at what you're doing at 10th Avenue as being a template that both the rest of WPP is looking at organizationally, from an organizational model point of view?
I seriously hope not. No, I think that we have an advantage of being small. Mm-hmm. We are in 24 markets, but we're only 1,100 people. We don't have a legacy business that we need to look after. We can be incredibly nimble, and we can move, and we can try things, and if they don't work, we stop them. One of the things that we try and instill is that, and I talk to all the guys who work with me, if we're not stopping doing something at least once every 6 months, we're not trying hard enough. And I think it's that attitude which you can get from a small business, which is quite difficult necessarily with a big business.
In the context of trying new things and being nimble, one of the challenges that agencies and media sellers have had with marketers, with clients, is that they'll empower you to try new things and to go through an R&D process, and then you'll identify where the opportunities are, where the successes are, but they're not willing to double down, triple down, quadruple down. In 15, 20 years ago, when you found a good idea, you really invested in that idea. Now it seems you invest in more experimentation and more trials, and we go from trial to trial to trial, and there's never that big win unless a company like Facebook or Google or Twitter comes along that it's clear you invest in. How do you overcome those issues with the CMOs and the marketing teams, and how do you get more budget into the successes that you're finding?
I think there's two things that there is, and I met David Krupp on the way back when he was coming here, and he was asked the question, and he said about, how can we grow the pile? This is not only an out-of-home issue. I think at this point that there is the biggest gap between how advertisers are distributing content to consumers versus how consumers are consuming media, right? But I think that everybody has realized that now. And I think that we are at a tipping point. So I think CMOs are prepared to have that conversation where they weren't previously.
And that tipping point is what?
The tipping point is I can't carry on spending, the same amount of money I spent on television last year. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily the answer. So I think you have an open door, but there are lots of people knocking at that open door, and you have to have a point of differentiation. So one, you have to understand the rest of the marketplace. You have to understand what everybody else is offering and your value proposal versus theirs, because you're in a competitive set. Secondly, I think that you have to have a wow factor. You have to offer something that is fantastic. And it's not just good enough to offer value. Everybody is there offering value. You have to offer fantastic executions aligned with your value. And then people will, in our experience, will begin to support. But it takes time. And what I think, something I learned from someone else who said, the secret of running a business is fail a lot, but fail quickly, which I think is probably.
So coming back to that, your point about fantastic really gets to the core of the question. So someone comes in and they offer something fantastic.
Yeah.
It's great. It gets to the client buys it, and it works. And then the client is looking for that next fantastic idea, even more fantastic than the last one, and that last year's idea goes out the door in search of the new fantastic idea. How do you take advantage of that fantastic idea and become a sustainable business?
Well, underneath, we do have a process. Everything we do is based around a specific client or a specific client category, and we focus on what objective, what is the problem, what objective are we trying to resolve, is it scalable, is it not scalable? So we go through that process, and before we try anything new, it's got to, we mark each of these, very boringly, out of 10, and it's got to have a certain score before it gets a green light. Mm-hmm. And we aren't, we're trying to create things that are scalable and repeatable. And if they're not, the cost of sale of it is not, you have to stop it. Mm-hmm. But it's not for us to tell advertisers or even media agencies what they should buy from us. We have to, and maybe on account of my history at GroupM, I know them quite well. I know the people there quite well, and it's, there's a lot of people turning up at their door, and you have to have support. Mm-hmm. Similar with the creative agencies, there are lots of people turning up, and you need their support. But in my experience is that, and it's not just WPP, it's across the industry. And we were talking to Chris Magel yesterday. Mm-hmm. It's not. He understands it and he supports it, but he needs more help from us. And he even said that he had no issue, hopefully he doesn't mind me quoting him, with the industry going directly to his clients to help him to support the idea. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, how we do that is obviously a sensitive issue. But I think that the marketplace out there is very supportive. Just collectively, we just don't know quite how to get it over the line in a, as you say, a repeatable and scalable way.
Any questions from the audience? I believe there's a young lady with a microphone. It's hard to see, so if you could raise your hand. Hi. Otherwise, I'll ask. Okay. We have...
If you had one piece of advice, Rupert, that you would give to the people in the audience, one piece, given where we are today, and I know you're restructuring and going forward, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to the media operator that we should do now that you consider that we're not doing right now?
Let me say, I think my response is what we can do together that we're not doing now. I think would be my response. I think that, and Barry and I have spoken. I think we can do a lot more together than we can do separately. I think that as I look from an extension of broadcast or an extension of any channel, we have to open up the audience as wide as possible. All right? We have to allow distribution across networks, not in individual networks. We have to understand how it's sold on a day-part basis, not only on a rotation basis. So I think there are a lot of difficulties and challenges for the industry, but I think that that is how we can work together in adapting how the industry sells to the people who are buying, so that the right audience gets the right content at the right time versus, let's be honest, getting the right content at the wrong time or the wrong content at the right time. And I think that's the challenge. How do you yield optimize your inventory without being sold out on everything that you want to sell and being completely undersold on the stuff that nobody wants? But whether we can be smarter about that, and it's not that nobody wants, but you will have high yield and you'll have low yield and you'll align advertisers accordingly. So to me, that is how we work together to really make it just part of the media schedule, rather than a individual cell by cell, which is what I believe is currently the case.
Can you talk briefly about the SPOFX relationship with Nielsen on the OOH index?
Yeah, I mean, we were very clear that if we're all after TV or TV-like dollars, is that we had to give the TV buyers a currency, an apple. They were buying apples, we had to give them an apple. All right, so there was no point giving them anything other than a GRP, because that's what they wanted to have. So we worked with Nielsen, who was obviously TV and video, to come up with a GRP for screens, because that was our view on the best way of selling it. And when we talk to digital people, we talk about a CPM, not a GRP. But that was a critical part of the process. The other critical part of the process, for our perspective, was the reporting and the auditing. There was no way in our mind that we could really go to a position to the likes of the broadcast traders if we couldn't give them third-party audit and reporting that they were used to. And that was the two foci that we did, because they like life the same. So I think, with Nielsen, and we will work with Nielsen. I mean, we don't only work with Nielsen, we will work with the TV measurement and the video measurement, whether that's in the UK, France, or wherever it be. So Nielsen is just the right partner here.
As a final question, I know at WPP and for Sir Martin, diversity is a major issue. And whether it's the OOH industry or anywhere within the media advertising and marketing community, there are real issues with diversity, gender diversity, ethnic diversity, bringing young people in and creating a welcoming environment. What do you think this industry can do better, and 10th Avenue can do better to improve the diversity in our community?
I mean, obviously the first thing is make it an attractive place for someone to come want to work. So I think that's the first thing, or make it more attractive, should I say? In terms of, I think we have to look harder and deeper. I mean, just sitting here, I mean, we know of a fantastic Hispanic-based, screen company that imports Mexican content into consulates, Mexican consulates, Honduran consulates all around America, creates mobile interactions. They get information from, as I say, the Mexican government, Honduran government, and they act as a real utility for immigrants coming into the country. They capture that engagement, they retarget them using mobile, they run healthcare programs. They should be here. Why aren't they here? And it's up to us to go out and go, listen, you should be part of it. So, it's not an industry problem, it's our problem, sitting up and going and getting out there and spreading the word, I guess.
And Barry, next year you'll replace me with a female. Okay?
Well, in fact, Jack has done a great job. Jack runs a large kind of female mentoring group that enables women to kind of get into the business.
I found it, I don't run.
Right, you founded it. He doesn't run it, but he founded it. But it's a substantive group. I mean, how many women are part of it?
Women in Media Mentoring Initiative, thank you, Barry, is 5,000 women across 8 chapters in the United States after 2 years. It's really
that's great work.
Real grassroots strength.
Appreciate it. Great work that Jack has done. And Rupert, what an interesting model, Rupert. You know, in this world of media buyers and sellers, where everybody's so classified into one group or another, you're kind of both or neither. How would you, in say 25 words or less, describe what 10th Avenue is for the reporters and others out there that can get kind of a quick snapshot of exactly what the business is?
I mean, we have a very simple proposition. We want to reach people when they're on the move, whatever the environment, understand how the physical and the digital work together and distribute content that they want to do something with and measure their engagement.
Right. And within that, you play buyer and seller in some ways, right?
We play buyer and seller. We're less uptight about that than other people.
Models and marketers, right.
When we're a seller, we disclose it, right? We are trying to create experiences that consumers want to engage with and advertisers want to buy.
Right.
I think, and we're a small business, and we have to be tactical as to how we approach the market. I think, to your point, as we move on, I do think probably from a necessity point of view, we're going to have to move to one side or the other.
One would think, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't mind that. You know, as long as, you know, let's be honest, Sparfax Networks existed because we created Sparfax Networks because we couldn't see it in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. You know, I think really want to work more with you guys to help us collectively create the marketplace, and then it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for all of us in the room to work with Sparfax, some great models, evidently some smart folks. And it's interesting if you kind of move to one side or the other, and you probably don't have an answer for this yet, but do you move under the GroupM kind of model, or you really are quite independent of GroupM outside of Sir Martin's WPP empire?
Yeah, I mean, we view ourselves independent of GroupM, even though they are a partner.
Right.
I mean, when I left GroupM, and obviously GroupM is a very important partner, they said, how do we know we're going to get the best prices? And I went, well, 1, you don't know, and 2, you won't necessarily get them.
Right, right.
You know, it's you know, as we know, pricing is dependent upon how early we are brought into the process and what flexibility we have in order to fulfill. And that's what determines price or overall value. You know, only I think 35% of our media sales is sold to WPP-based agencies. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? So we view ourselves, no disrespect to the GroupM model, but the GroupM is there to service their agency clients. Mm-hmm. We have a slightly different model. How that model evolves, I'm not sure yet, whether we push it off to one side or whether it's an integral part of 10th Avenue. I think we will decide in part, the marketplace will decide in part, and our clients will decide in probably a bigger part.
So which one of Sir Martin's monikers do you best fit, or is it both? Is it frenemies or co-opetition?
We are definitely co-opetition.
Okay, excellent. Well, with that, thank 2 very great folks here. Thank you very much. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was great, Jack. Thank you, Rupert. Thank you so much. Well done. Great.